Imagine standing in a field, and walking toward you is a creature so massive, so powerful that the ground literally shakes beneath its hooves. Its shoulders tower above your head. Its neck is thicker than your entire torso. Its hooves are the size of dinner plates. And then, just a few feet away, there's another horse. But this one barely reaches your hip. It looks up at you with the biggest eyes you've ever seen, completely unbothered, like it has no idea it's sharing a planet with a walking mountain. Welcome to the most extreme size comparison in the animal kingdom. And we're not talking about elephants versus mice. We're talking about horses versus horses. The same species, same DNA, same family. But nature and centuries of human breeding had very, very different plans for them. Today, we're putting 5 of the world's most gigantic draft horses head to hoof against 5 of the tiniest ponies to ever exist on this earth. We're talking about animals that will genuinely make your brain short-circuit when you see them side by side. Some of these giants weigh more than a full-sized pickup truck, and some of these tiny ones, I promise you, are smaller than your average golden retriever. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you will never look at a horse the same way again. Let's start big, impossibly big. Let's start with the heavyweights. Coming in at number 5 on our draft horse list is the Suffolk Punch. And yes, that name is as powerful as the horse itself. Originating in the county of Suffolk in eastern England, this breed has been pulling its weight, literally, since the early 1500s, making it one of the oldest heavy draft breeds in the entire world. The Suffolk Punch stands between 16 and 17 hands tall, which translates to roughly 64 to 68 inches at the shoulder, and weighs anywhere between 1,900 and 2,200 pounds. That's basically a small car with a mane and a personality. What makes the Suffolk Punch immediately recognizable is its color. Every single registered Suffolk Punch in the world is chestnut, no exceptions. From bright golden chestnut to deep liver chestnut, but always chestnut. Breeders have maintained this trait for over 500 years with absolutely zero deviation. The breed is also famously clean-legged, meaning it doesn't have the heavy feathering, the long flowing hair around the hooves, that you see on most other draft breeds. It has a broad, rounded, almost barrel-shaped body, sitting on relatively short, powerful legs, which gives it that distinctive, punchy, compact power. The Suffolk Punch was bred exclusively for agricultural work, pulling plows through the heavy clay soils of East Anglia, and it was absolutely brilliant at its job. During World War I and World War II, thousands of Suffolk Punches were used to haul artillery and supplies across the battlefields of Europe. Tragically, after the war, mechanized farming nearly wiped the breed out entirely. By the 1950s, numbers had collapsed to dangerously low levels, and today the Suffolk Punch remains critically endangered, with fewer than 300 breeding mares left in the UK. Despite conservation efforts by dedicated breeders in England, the United States, and Canada, this ancient, magnificent horse is still fighting for its survival. At number 4, we're moving from England to the heartland of Europe, specifically to the Rhineland region of Germany. And the horse is the Rhenish German Coldblood, also known as the Rheinisches Kaltblut. This is a breed that many people outside of Europe have never heard of, but it absolutely deserves a spot on this list, because in terms of sheer body mass and muscular bulk, very few horses on Earth can compete. The Rhenish German Coldblood stands between 16 and 17 hands and can weigh between 2,000 and 2,600 pounds. That upper end is staggering. You're looking at an animal that outweighs most professional sumo wrestlers by the ton. Developed in the late 19th century through systematic breeding programs in Western Germany, this horse was designed from the ground up to be a working machine, specifically for heavy agricultural and industrial hauling in the Rhine and Westphalia regions. The breed draws on bloodlines from Belgian draft horses, Clydesdales, and several regional German heavy horse breeds, all combined to produce an animal of extraordinary power and a relatively calm, cooperative temperament. The Rhenish German Coldblood typically comes in chestnut, roan, or bay, with a massive, broad back, a short, powerful neck, and legs built like structural columns. Like many heavy draft breeds in Europe, its numbers declined sharply with the rise of modern machinery, and today it's listed as endangered, with dedicated breed preservation societies in Germany working hard to keep this magnificent animal from disappearing from the earth. Number 3 takes us to France, specifically to the Perche region of Normandy, and introduces you to the Percheron, one of the most famous and widely distributed heavy draft horses in the entire world. If you've ever seen a Budweiser commercial, you've seen Clydesdales. But if you've ever seen a massive dapple gray horse pulling a carriage through a city park or working on a farm somewhere in North America, there's a very good chance it was a Percheron. Percherons typically stand between 16 and 18 hands tall and weigh between 1,900 and 2,600 pounds, though some individuals have tipped the scales even higher. What makes the Percheron unique among heavy draft horses is its elegance. While breeds like the Rhenish Coldblood are all about raw, blocky mass, the Percheron carries itself with a certain grace and energy that comes from an ancient infusion of Arabian blood. During the Middle Ages, Percheron stallions were crossed with Arabian and Andalusian horses brought back from the Crusades, and that influence gave the breed a more refined head, a longer arching neck, and a livelier way of moving that other Coldbloods simply don't have. The breed has been documented in France since at least the early 1800s, though its origins stretch back several centuries further. By the 19th century, Percherons were being exported in massive numbers to the United States, Canada, Australia, and South America, where they became the most popular draft breed in the world for decades. During World War I, the French and American armies used Percherons extensively for hauling artillery, and American breeders imported thousands of them to rebuild their stock after the war. Today, the Percheron thrives globally, and France maintains a strict stud book to protect the breed's purity and heritage. Number 2 belongs to Scotland. And if there's one draft horse that the world recognizes immediately by sight, it's the Clydesdale. Those massive feathered legs, that high-stepping, animated trot, that broad, expressive face. The Clydesdale is, in many ways, the rock star of the heavy horse world. Clydesdales typically stand between 16 and 18 hands and weigh between 1,800 and 2,200 pounds, though exceptional individuals can reach 2,400 pounds and stand close to 20 hands. Developed in Lanarkshire, formerly known as Clydesdale, in Scotland during the 18th century, the breed was created by crossing local mares with imported Flemish stallions, producing a horse of tremendous pulling power combined with an active, high-stepping movement that made it perfect not just for farm work, but for city hauling as well. At the height of their working era in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Clydesdales numbered in the hundreds of thousands across Britain, Australia, Canada, and the United States. What truly sets the Clydesdale apart visually is its feathering, the long, silky hair that flows from the knee and hock down over the massive hooves. In show condition, this feathering is carefully groomed, washed, and fluffed into an almost theatrical display of equine spectacle. Clydesdale hooves themselves are enormous, often the size of a large frying pan, and the breed standard actually calls for a horse that has a round, open hoof, described as being like a cooking pot. The Budweiser Clydesdales, introduced in 1933 to celebrate the end of Prohibition, are probably the most famous horses in advertising history and have introduced this extraordinary breed to hundreds of millions of people worldwide. And now we arrive at number 1, the undisputed, record-breaking, ground-shaking king of all draft horses, the Shire horse. Born and bred in the English Midlands, in the Shire counties of Lincolnshire, Derbyshire, Staffordshire, and Leicestershire, the Shire horse is the largest horse breed on the planet, and it has held that title for centuries. A typical Shire stallion stands between 17 and 19 hands tall. That's 68 to 76 inches at the shoulder, and weighs between 1,800 and 2,400 pounds. But the record holders have been something else entirely. The most famous Shire horse in history was a stallion named Samson, later renamed Mammoth, who was born in 1846 in Bedfordshire, England. Mammoth stood an absolutely jaw-dropping 21.2 and a half hands tall. That's over 7 feet and 2 inches at the shoulder, and weighed approximately 3,359 pounds. He remains, to this day, the tallest and heaviest horse ever officially recorded in human history. No horse in any breed, from any country in any era, has ever surpassed him. The Shire horse's origins trace back to the medieval Great Horse, the massive war horses that carried armored knights into battle during the Middle Ages. Those horses needed to carry a rider plus 400 pounds of armor and equipment without flinching. Over centuries, selective breeding for size, strength, and docility produced the modern Shire we know today. During the Industrial Revolution, Shires were the engine of Britain's economy, hauling coal, grain, timber, and goods through the streets of London and across the countryside. At their peak in the early 20th century, there were over 1 million Shires in Britain alone. Today, like so many draft breeds, the Shire is classified as vulnerable, with conservation efforts underway in the UK, the United States, Canada, and Australia to protect what many call the gentle giant of the horse world.
All right, now let's flip everything completely upside down and go tiny, incredibly, impossibly, adorably tiny. Coming in at number 5 on our pony list is the Icelandic horse. And yes, technically in Iceland, it is always called a horse, never a pony. And if you call it a pony to an Icelander, you may not be invited back. But at an average height of 13 to 14 hands and a weight of 730 to 840 pounds, it comfortably fits the technical definition of a pony by international standards. So here it is. The Icelandic horse is one of the purest and most isolated horse breeds in the world. It arrived in Iceland with Norse settlers between 860 and 935 AD. And since the Icelandic parliament passed a law in 982 AD banning the import of foreign horses to protect the breed's purity, no outside horse blood has entered the Icelandic gene pool for over 1,000 years. Over 1,000 years of complete isolation. As a result, the Icelandic horse has developed into something genuinely unlike any other equine on Earth. It has 5 gaits. Most horses only have 3, including the tolt, a smooth 4-beat gait that can travel at speeds ranging from a slow walk to a full gallop, all while giving the rider almost 0 vertical bounce. Icelandic riders have been known to carry a full glass of beer at a full tolt without spilling a drop. Bred to survive Iceland's volcanic landscape, brutal winters, violent storms, and scarce food, the Icelandic horse is extraordinarily tough. Long-lived, often working comfortably into its 30s, and almost supernaturally sure-footed. They are small, but they are serious. And Iceland's population of around 80,000 Icelandic horses actually outnumbers the island's horse-to-human ratio in ways that tell you everything about how central this animal is to Icelandic identity and culture. At number 4, we cross from the North Atlantic to the rugged Scottish archipelago and meet the Shetland pony, possibly the most recognizable small horse in the entire world, and one that has been making children fall in love with horses for generations. The Shetland pony originates from the Shetland Islands, a remote Scottish island group located nearly halfway between mainland Scotland and Norway. These islands are cold, windswept, treeless, and harsh, and the Shetland pony has lived there for over 4,000 years, shaped entirely by that punishing environment. Shetland ponies are measured in inches rather than hands in the UK, with the maximum height for a registered Shetland being 42 inches. That's just 10.2 hands, or roughly 107 centimeters at the shoulder. They typically weigh between 400 and 450 pounds. But here's the thing that makes the Shetland pony genuinely extraordinary. Pound for pound, it is the strongest horse on Earth. Relative to its body size, a Shetland pony can pull and carry more weight than any draft horse, any Clydesdale, any Shire. They were used extensively in British coal mines throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, hauling heavy loads of coal through underground tunnels too small for full-sized horses. Known as pit ponies, many of these animals spent their entire working lives underground, never seeing daylight. Some were born underground and died underground. It's one of the more heartbreaking chapters in the history of working animals.
Today, the Shetland pony is beloved as a children's riding pony, a companion animal, and a show horse, with dedicated breed societies in the UK, the US, and across Europe maintaining the breed's ancient heritage.
Number 3 brings us to Wales, and one of the most beautiful small horses in the entire world, the Welsh Mountain Pony, specifically the Section A, the smallest of the 4 Welsh pony and cob sections. Standing no taller than 12 hands, 48 inches, the Welsh Mountain Pony has lived wild in the mountains and valleys of Wales for thousands of years. Julius Caesar is said to have been so impressed by the native Welsh ponies he encountered during the Roman invasion of Britain that he imported some back to Rome. Whether or not that story is entirely accurate, it gives you a sense of how long this animal has been capturing human imagination. The Welsh Mountain Pony carries unmistakable Arabian influence. Large, dark, prominent eyes, a slightly dished face, wide nostrils, and a naturally high tail carriage, giving it a look of extraordinary refinement for such a small animal. It typically weighs between 300 and 500 pounds. Despite its delicate appearance, the Welsh Mountain Pony is exceptionally hardy, having spent centuries surviving the cold, wet, rough terrain of the Welsh uplands on minimal food. King Henry VIII, in a misguided attempt to improve English horse stock by eliminating small horses, actually issued a decree ordering the destruction of all wild ponies under 15 hands. And the Welsh Mountain Pony survived anyway, hiding in terrain that no one else could reach. You cannot kill a Welsh Mountain Pony with paperwork. Nature made sure of that.
At number 2, we have a horse that most people have never heard of, but that absolutely stops people in their tracks the moment they see one. The Falabella, the world's smallest horse breed, originating from Argentina. The Falabella is not a pony in the traditional sense. It is a true miniature horse, maintaining the proportions of a full-sized horse in an extraordinarily tiny package. The breed was developed in the mid-19th century by the Falabella family on their ranch south of Buenos Aires, beginning with Patrick Newtall, who discovered a small herd of tiny horses living with an indigenous Argentine tribe and began selectively breeding them for even smaller size. The breeding program was continued and refined by Julio Falabella, who introduced Shetland pony, thoroughbred, and Arabian blood to the line, before stabilizing the breed's characteristics. A fully grown Falabella typically stands between 6 and 8 hands, that's 24 to 34 inches, and weighs between 40 and 100 pounds. Some individuals have stood as small as 5 hands. To put that in perspective, an average Shire horse stallion could weigh 30 times more than a Falabella. 30 times! The same species. The Falabella is so small that fully grown adults are sometimes smaller than a large dog. They are used today primarily as companion animals, therapy horses, and show horses, and they are known for their gentle, intelligent temperament and surprising longevity. Many live into their 40s. The Falabella family has maintained the original breeding registry in Argentina to this day, and the breed remains one of the rarest in the world, with numbers in the low thousands globally.
And finally, number 1, the smallest horse ever officially and verifiably recorded in the entire history of the world. A horse so small, it makes even the Falabella look large by comparison. And her name was Thumbelina. Thumbelina was a dwarf miniature horse, a sorrel brown mare, born on May 1st, 2001 at Goose Creek Farm in St. Louis, Missouri, USA. She stood just 17.5 inches tall, that is 4.4 hands, and weighed 57 pounds. On May 7, 2002, when she was barely a year old, Guinness World Records officially certified her as the world's smallest living horse. She held that record for the rest of her life. To understand just how small Thumbelina was, a standard Shire horse stallion standing next to her would have been roughly 5 times her height. Her head was approximately the size of a large human fist. She wore a dog harness. She ate food from a dog bowl. Her owners, Paul and Kay Gosling, who bred miniature horses on their Missouri farm, said she was born unexpectedly small even by miniature horse standards.
She was a dwarf, meaning her small size came with certain physical complications, including a slightly enlarged head and shortened limbs relative to her body. But she was healthy, feisty, and by all accounts, completely unaware of how impossibly small she was. Thumbelina spent much of her life touring schools and children's hospitals across the United States as part of a therapy and awareness program, bringing joy to thousands of children who had never seen anything like her. She passed away in 2018 at the age of 17, which is a full, comfortable lifespan for a miniature horse of her kind. She was 17 inches tall. She was real, and she remains the smallest horse this world has ever officially known.